Okay, good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, January 1st, 2021, and welcome to the Curriculum Committee meeting of the San Benito CISD Board of Trustees by video conference, Zoom, or telephone, and I call this meeting to order at exactly 5:31 p.m. But let's move on to agenda item 1.2, public comment. Mr. Moreno?
Yes, sir. We have several public comments tonight. The first one comes to us from Ms. Diana Garcia, and it says as follows. Good evening. Tonight I want to touch up on a delicate topic, taxpayers' money. Ms. Vice President, you and the board president are hypocrites. You claim you want to help the taxpayer save money, yet you hold meetings for over 4 hours. Ms. Vice President, you ask questions that can be answered simply by going to the main office and ask any of the directors. Do this at your time, not the taxpayers. You hold meetings for 4 hours or more, and that is costing the taxpayers unnecessary expense. For example, on May 18th, the meeting was over 4 hours. We paid the lawyers at $250 an hour. Excuse me. That equals to $1,000. On May 25th, we paid the lawyers another $1,000 for 4 hours. Again, that is $2,000 for 2 days in the month of May, and this is not counting May 11th. Mr. Board President, how many meetings are you going to be holding this month of June? The new attorneys are grinning from ear to ear because this is easy money. What about the taxpayers? Nobody is laughing. Excuse me. Not only are we paying the attorneys, but we have hourly employees who are being paid time and a half because of you, Ms. Vice President. What is your beef? Do you like hearing yourself speak like your board president who doesn't even let his secretary read the public comments? As a taxpayer, I don't appreciate my money being used by you to make yourself look good. So, citizen of San Benito, why do we put up with this? Did the new board make a contract with their attorneys that we don't know about? Was their contract to get enough hours to make their job worthwhile? Citizens of San Benito, something needs to be done. Call them and stop spending our hard-earned money. Thank you, Ms. Diana Garcia. Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Moving on to the second public comment. This comes from Mary Maney, our San Benito High School math teacher. Dr. Carmen and board trustees, my name is Mary Maney, and I am a teacher at San Benito High School. I thank you for the opportunity to make comments on two of the administration committee agenda items, 2.2 and 2.4. My comments are asking for some clarification in the policies being discussed. Agenda 2.2, BED local. I noticed a change to the policy that is changing the public comment format based on the type of meeting being held. My question deals with the fact that you basically are using two types, regular and special meeting. Where do the committee meetings fall? Are they a regular meeting as they are required prior to a regular board meeting? Are they considered to be a special meeting as a policy for special meetings says at all other board meetings? It would make matters clearer if the heading that contains the committee meetings would reflect this. I feel this would cut down on some of the controversy that could arise based on an inconsistent application of which category and its requirements are put into effect. Agenda 2.4, Board Policy Update 117. In reviewing the DEC local changes that are proposed, I have a question regarding the elimination of the leave recording section. How is leave going to be recorded once this policy is adopted? It used to be that professionals had to take leave in half-day increments, while hourly took their leave based on actual hours. By eliminating this section, are professional employees going to be able to request leave on an hourly basis, or are we still going to have to take leave in the half-day increments? This could lead to some interesting situations if it is not clearly laid out as to how leave is to be recorded. I appreciate your time and consideration of my questions with regard to these two policy updates. As always, Mrs. Maney, thank you for your comment. The next one comes to us by Nidia Lee Espinosa, 1979 San Benito High School graduate and SBCISD retired elementary school principal. Dear Superintendent and SBCISD school board members, I'm a 1979 San Benito High School graduate and a San Benito CISD retired employee of 33 years. My address to you does not concern any agenda item, but is something true and dear to my heart as well as the hearts of most of the San Benito community. The graduating class of 1979 were the last seniors to leave the old San Benito High School mid-year and the first to graduate from the new high school. Our graduation invitation included photos of both the old and new high schools. Although the new high school has been home to many San Benito High School students since 1979, the old high school, better known as the old BC to the younger generation, needs tender, loving care. The old San Benito High School is a historical marker has structural beauty, and holds the memories of many San Benito community members. We must preserve what is precious to our community. I respectfully request that you consider renovating and revitalizing this beautiful building before it is too late. Ms. Espinosa, thank you for your comment. This next comment comes to us from Mr. J. Mendoza. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jesus Mendoza. I have been homebound for more than 10 years with life-threatening electrohypersensitivity, EHS, which is caused and aggravated by exposure to the same wireless microwave radiation reaching children and teachers at school. I have been violently ill several times. I am sleep deprived and in pain all the time. Every day it is a different torture. This is a horrible way to die. My EHS has been recognized by federal and state agencies and by courts as a physical medical condition and as a disability. EHS proves conclusively that exposure to levels of radiation below the federal safety limits causes severe harm and disabilities, and that exposing children to microwave radiation defeats the purpose of education. It is estimated that without knowing it, more than 50% of the population is already suffering symptoms of EHS. Children, teachers, doctors, attorneys, and even a director of the World Health Organization are suffering from EHS. Please see wearetheevidence.org. Despite the fact that electrosensitivity is reaching pandemic proportions, most doctors are in the dark or in denial and continue misdiagnosing and mistreating with harmful drugs and invasive procedures symptoms that appear with just reducing exposure to microwave radiation. A law firm filed a federal lawsuit with evidence of how cell phones used by our children emit more than 5 times the levels allowed by federal law, when even short doses of radiation above the federal safety limits cause harm even to healthy and strong adults. And 7 law firms are warning school officials of the potential civil and criminal liability of exposing children unnecessarily to harmful microwave and 5G radiation when inexpensive hardwired broadband internet is readily available. Some of the symptoms of EHS include pain, swelling of vital organs, swelling of face, head, and eyes, symptoms of heart attack and stroke, rashes and loss of skin, flu and allergy symptoms, stomach and digestive troubles, insomnia, vision, hearing, memory, speech, concentration, and breathing problems. Scientific studies prove most doctors are confounding the symptoms of electrosensitivity with symptoms of other illnesses, including autism, ADHD, dyslexia, PTSD, heart attack, stroke, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, hypothyroidism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, and major depression and suicidal tendencies. The above is detailed in the request to protect the children submitted to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, and posted on the case materials of J. Mendoza at wirelesswatchblog.org. Ladies and gentlemen, your prompt response to this evidence can save the lives of children and teachers and other defenseless and unsuspecting victims. Thank you very much for giving serious consideration to this matter. Respectfully, Juan Mendoza. Mr. Mendoza, thank you. Last, we have another public comment, and this is by Rosalinda G. Garcia. Public comment for agenda item 2.4. Members of the board, at a previous meeting, a board member commented if the board was now going to be looking at every dollar that is spent. My question is, have you not been looking at every tax dollar that is spent or attempting to? You should be. With that, I proceed to comment on the contract the district has with Absolute Business Consulting. Their $100,000 plus annual contract automatically renews every 2 years in April with a 90-day advance notice of termination before anniversary date. Mr. President, I might be wrong, yet I do not find where ABC contract was placed on Finance Committee meeting in January of this year. Whose responsibility is it to place for discussion? Administration? If it was never placed for discussion, then it auto-renewed. And this contract stipulates that we, the taxpayers, pay a monthly fee and they provide services on an as-needed basis. This means that whether they provide any kind of service, such as speech writing, publication of newsletter for 2-3 months, they are still paid. Please look into this if able. Thank you. Once again, we thank all our constituents for their public comment. Back to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Then we move on to agenda item 2.1, presentation of the academic services directors on the 2021-22 rebound plan. Is that all? Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Dr. Carmen, and the Board of Trustees. Today, we're going to present our rebound plan. As we are finishing our school year, we know that we have a lot of work ahead of us as our students return for the 21-22 school year. Myself, along with our nine directors, worked really hard on this plan, and this plan is in front of you. And it is broken up, it is sectioned by curriculum, instruction, assessment, supplemental report, and the appendix, which has the budgets. So we will be taking turns. Obviously, I will do the intro, and then all of us have a part. These are the awesome directors that I work alongside with every day. And I just wanted to share that. They are just so knowledgeable. All of us have been working really hard to make sure we get everything we need for our students as they return. And my applause to them for a job well done. Great job, directors. Real proud of y'all. So we'll go with the first slide. Oh, I have the clicker, right? A little bit about the Academic Service Department, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail other than we're 9 directors. We have 18 principals. We have 7 instructional coaches, and we also have the print shop as part of our department. If you look at the vision, mission, core values very quickly, we follow the mission and vision of San Benito CISD. And then before school started, I worked with all of our directors here to come up with the core values for our department. These are 7 goals that we take to heart. We worked on them. And at the end of it all, it's about us being a support for our schools. So when principals see us entering buildings, they know we're there to support them, to guide them in whatever they need. If you go to the next slide, we have family schools. All of our directors have family schools that they visit every month. So whenever we have testing, I have the clicker. Whenever we have testing, whenever there's an issue, with when we had the freeze, all of the directors know when I send them a text, all right, we go to our family schools, and there you'll see all our directors and all the schools they're assigned. My entire vision for our department is to serve our schools and to make sure that we're there to support them, not get in their way. And I really, truly feel that our principals feel this way. When we worked on this rebound plan, we had a lot of information. We had parent surveys, we had teacher input, we had principal input as well. We also met with our students. We met with our secondary students, and we met with a group of elementary students. So we've had a lot of input as we come back. We know what the kids really, really need. We know some of the concerns that the students have and how we can help them. And that was the whole plan, to find out what do they need and how can we help them so they feel comfortable when they come back in the fall. So we had a lot of information from everyone. But it was very, very moving to hear our students. Most of them are already back face-to-face, and we did have 1 or 2 that were remote. But we did a lot of planning when we worked on this rebound plan. So again, like I said, the plan in front of you is sectioned off into curriculum, instruction, assessments, and supplemental support. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Gomez, as she's going to start off with reading forecast and math forecast.
Oh, I have the clicker. I have the power. Good evening. I'm Lisa Gomez. I'm the Director of Secondary Instructional Implementation. And so I'd like to begin by giving you an idea of some of the, adversity that our teachers have had to, and students have had to overcome. So what you see is a chart from NWEA. This is the same organization whom you agreed to pass our request for assessments from this organization. It's exceptional and well-known nationally. And so what you can see here are some of the struggles that our students had. So even though this is from 2020, you can see the solid line on the chart is basically what we would expect through a typical summer loss. And then you're going to see a larger hyphenation, and that deviates from the main line. And that's what happened when COVID first showed up in our communities. And then the third line that you see there is the COVID slide. So we are already accustomed to dealing with what we call a summer slide. And so what this represents is a huge jump there in a huge loss and regression for our students, and that goes simply 3rd through 8th. Again, it's just a visual to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. So even worse yet, you'll see the little excerpt there. It says preliminary COVID slide estimates suggest students will return in the fall 2020 with roughly 70% of the learning goals in reading relative to a typical year. So 70% in reading, but that's overall. However, in mathematics, students are likely to show much smaller learning gains, returning with less than 50% of the learning gains, and in some grades, nearly a full year behind what we would observe in normal conditions. So just to observe one of the, I guess, worst scenarios, if you look at 3rd grade, and you follow that small dotted line, the lowest one, across back to the beginning of the year, that shows you basically what we're starting off with. So this is a huge undertaking. And that is simply to illustrate what it is that we're dealing with. Why do we have this ESSER money? What are we trying to accomplish? So this sets the stage. If you look here, this comparison, I found it particularly informational because we see an apples to apples. So this is fall of 2019 versus fall of 2020. And you'll see 3rd grade through 8th grade.
Ms. Gomez, when you're making that comparison in that previous slide, the bar graphs, you've got the orange and the teal or whatever color that is. You're comparing 2 different groups of kids at each grade level, though, correct?
No.
It's not the same, or is it the same cohort?
That's a great observation. So this is the same cohort. And that's one of the great things about NWEA research is that they'll do the beginning of the year assessment, and they measure the progress of the students. So it is the same cohort, and that is a great observation. So now we're going to move into the curriculum section. I'm going to hand off to my partner in crime, Ms. Cornett.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to be talking about some of the items that we discussed today. Some may pertain just solely to elementary, and some of them may be solely for secondary, but there are going to be some items that are across the board, elementary to secondary, and one of those is TEKS resource system. TEKS resource system is our curriculum. It is something that once we started implementing with fidelity, we started seeing significant gains. So therefore, we will stick with what we know works for us. And there's several resources that we have with the TEKS resource system that we utilize consistently, our instructional focus documents, our YAG, which is what we use to follow. But there are some things that are going to be very important as we continue with our rigorous instruction. And in order to be able to properly scaffold instruction, we're going to be using our vertical alignment documents. So that way teachers can continuously make reference to what they're teaching on grade level, because we're going to continue to teach on grade level TEKS, but also be making reference to what was taught the previous year, what did the students achieve, what did they understand, what are the gaps that we have there. And so these are going to be continuously be referred to throughout the entire year. A new document and resource that TEKS resource system is providing us is the instructional considerations to activate purposeful planning tool. And this is specifically for math. And this particular resource, what it does, it's done, previously they had the COVID gap resource, and this is a more extensive resource doing that for some of the legwork that we would need to do, it's already been done for us. And so teachers will also be using this tool to go ahead and continue with their instruction throughout the school year. Another document is our backward design document. And so this document is really important because it gives us the end picture of what we're wanting to achieve, and we work backwards to make sure that we have a continuous focus to that goal that we want. Any questions on that? No? Great. Back to Ms. Gomez. There you go.
So one thing that we did this year is we took advantage of a free resource from TEA, and this is called CRIMSI, which stands for, and you may need an oxygen tank after saying the whole title, COVID Recovery Instructional Material Support Initiative. And what this is basically high-quality instructional materials that are K through 12. They are specialized for our COVID setting. So you can use them for virtual instruction, in-person, hybrid. They also address personal learning and technology supports. Again, this is free, and it's part of Texas Home Learning from TEA. So what we did was, well, we wanted to be responsive. At the same time, we don't want to jump to the brand new thing because that requires training and whatnot. So we piloted elementary, second grade math and sixth grade reading, English 1 and English 2.
Okay, and so we also have a variety of e-learning digital platforms that we use. And these are to supplement the instruction that we provide in the classrooms. And each one of these, I know it looks like a lot, but each one of these digital platforms, e-learning resources, has a specific purpose, and it's for a specific targeted group. So for instance, Summit K-12 is for our English learners, and that provides them practice with TELPAS assessment. Since the TELPAS assessment now requires the listening and the speaking to be done via computer, this allows the students to practice those particular skills in that assessment through Summit K-12. iStation in reading and math gives us two different components. It gives us the ISEP, and the ISEP is something that we use for progress monitoring for all Tier 1 students. And then it gives us practice in reading and math for our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. Dreambox, again, facilitates, it's for all our math students in Tier 1, and as we can see, that's a significant area of need that we're seeing based on the data that Ms. Gomez just showed you. We need additional support for that. Edgenuity is mainly used for secondary schools. We also, credit recovery. STEM scopes for science. Educational and Galaxy, what that does is specifically, it's TEKS-based, and we use that, the teachers use that during their instruction when they're teaching. So based on the TEK or the skill that they're teaching, focusing on, they're gonna go ahead and assign this. Nearpod is a teacher instructional tool, and so that's something, especially with our virtual learning, that's been a very, very useful tool that the teachers have really used, and they use in the classroom as well. Any questions on these? No? Okay.
Are these instruments that the teachers are using to supplement, to add on to their teaching, besides their normal classroom lessons that they do?
Yes, these can be used in classroom during the instructional day, in the morning. Some of them are used during the morning. Some of them are used after school, and some may be used at home as well. So,
Okay, so it's not solely being used as the instructional material?
No, ma'am. These are supplemental. These supplement the instruction that teachers are providing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're kind of working like tag team wrestlers here, so I don't want her to move too far away from me. So this is really an approach that we're taking to meet our students' needs. It is somewhat of a second order change for some people. Depending on the subject matter, some teachers are more familiar with this, but basically, we're looking at an acceleration model as opposed to a remediation model. And what this means is that we want to use responsive interventions strategically, preparing students for success in their current grade level, in their current content, by providing targeted support for the most critical prerequisite content for upcoming units of study. So if you take out your microscopic lenses, you can see there in the graphic that the blue represents the on-grade level, and the pink is where we're putting in those targeted prerequisite skills, but we're really on grade level. So maybe an example of that might be, I have a student who's an 8th grader, but they show that they're very far behind in reading or writing. So what I'm gonna do is, let's say that the skill is writing complex sentences. So as I get into that, I'm not going to go try recover a year or half a year's worth of education. It doesn't work that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move onto the grade level and front load with those prerequisite skills. And then as they come up, spiral them into what we're already learning. And so that is research-based. That is, I guess, endorsed by Region 1, and they've done training on that to help us. And so that's going to require that we look at TRS, which is our TEKS resource system, which is our curriculum, and we have to reconcile that with our local calendar. And so basically we take a scope and sequence that they have, we look at what we need to learn in our backyard, and then we account for holidays and so forth, and we make a match, okay?
Ms. Gomez, so when do y'all propose on having the teachers work on this, or are the department heads gonna be working on this? And if you would explain to the board, you did, but maybe go back and let them know that there's a difference between the term acceleration and remediation, which is something new to us that we're learning as we go. But what you're referring to is the acceleration. I just saw this earlier. I had a meeting with my staff, and so there's a big difference. But so how do y'all intend to look at the YAGs and make those tweaks that necessary to make sure that you are including those prerequisites?
Okay, so great question. And actually, it was more than one question, so we have to charge you for each one.
There you go.
So your first question was, can I go back and discuss the difference between remediation and acceleration, okay? So old school would be, Lisa Gomez comes in and she's behind a half a year, so what I'm gonna do as a teacher is I'm gonna go back a half a year and reteach her that in her present class, okay? So if I'm in 6th grade, we're gonna go back to second semester, the beginning of second semester, and start teaching me 5th grade, okay? So obviously we have a short turnaround time. We have about 4 weeks in the summer, 2 weeks in the summer, depending. This year we have 2 weeks in the summer. And the difference with acceleration is that I'm in a current grade level, so before I get up to a skill, my teachers are gonna give me the fundamentals that are necessary to learn that skill in present time. So if I can make like an analogy, it would kind of be like a company is filling orders as the orders come in versus a company that's projecting what kind of orders would need to be filled so that I can meet future orders, okay?
Okay, this is specifically for elementary curriculum. And so because we know that there are going to be significant gains, there's a couple of things that we're looking at here. And as Ms. Gomez mentioned, we are going to be doing accelerated instruction, scaffolding the prior year TEKS that may have been missed, and we're going to scaffold that instruction throughout the year. For the elementary, we know our 5 components are reading. It's important for our students to have a very strong foundation, and so therefore we're proposing to purchase resources to ensure that our teachers have the resources available to them to provide that to the students. And I'm going to give you an example. A 2nd grader right now, generally when we get a 2nd grader in for reading, we're focusing on fluency, building vocabulary, and teaching those comprehension skills. But right now, essentially, that 2nd grader could possibly have missed all of 1st grade and part of kinder. So that's a significant loss. So what we're doing is we're proposing to provide resources, something that's worked for us. It's not necessarily new. It's an updated resource that has proved to us that has been working is Saxon Phonics. It's a very explicit phonics instruction. But before that, in order to be able to get that strong phonics instruction and for our students to understand it, we need a strong phonemic awareness program. So we're bringing in the Heggerty phonemic awareness. This is all oral development of manipulating the phonemes, understanding the sounds, and manipulating the sounds. It's all done orally. It's really quick instruction, but it's something that the teachers have quickly they can reference. We're going to train our paraprofessionals in this as well, provide some professional development for both of them to ensure that those 2nd graders who possibly missed it are getting it, that our 1st graders who possibly missed it are getting this, and we're going to be providing this to kinder and pre-K as well. Also, another component that's very important is our response to intervention. And we want to make sure, again, that our teachers have the resources available to them to provide this instruction. We're going to be providing each one of our RTI teachers the Hegarty Bridge the Gap resource. We want them to have this on every campus. Also, the Fort Ferrier RTI Intervention Mastery for math and for reading for our 3rd through 5th grade. We know that those 3rd graders, those 4th graders and 5th graders are going to have significant gaps, and we want our teachers to have the resources they need to address them. Tier 1 reading material for reading and for math. I'm sorry, I repeated myself. Tier 1 material for both reading and math for STAR Prep. We're going to go ahead and do the Math GPS for 3rd through 5th and the Think It Up ELAR for 3rd through 5th. This is rigorous instruction, rigorous, I shouldn't say instruction, but it's rigorous assessments or not curriculum, but instructional materials. Thank you. Instructional materials, rigorous instructional materials, but we strongly believe that it's important that we maintain those high expectations. We maintain the rigor. We are not going to water it down. We know it's going to be difficult for our teachers, and we know it's going to be difficult for our students, but we are going to scaffold the instruction. And that's why it's important that we have those resources from TEKS resource system for our teachers readily available so they can go ahead and address those needs as they come up. The curriculum alignment and common formative assessments, we're going to be doing some work this summer led by our instructional coaches, and those teachers who have proven to do great work in the classroom, we're going to be reaching out to them. We're having conversations so they can go ahead and lead this for our district. And also, along with all of this, we're going to provide some really good professional development for our teachers, and again, to our teacher assistants.
I do have a couple of comments on this. You alluded to something with Saxon phonics, and you know, in my district, we've had that, and it's gathering dust in the closet. I know that you have listed here the 2021 edition. I would almost be willing to bet money that somewhere here in San Benito, we probably have Saxon phonics as well, the previous editions. So what is a major difference aside from it being a little bit more current? Is there really a drastic difference in those curriculums?
What we're doing, we did have a presentation,
Okay.
and what this provides is additional readers, leveled readers for our students. They've also updated their scope and sequence for Saxon phonics, and I'm going to say previously, maybe a few years ago, it was purchased. Not everyone used it. But I can tell you, the campuses that used it with fidelity saw results. And so therefore, the last couple of years, this has been a district initiative to make sure that we have very explicit phonics instruction for our students. It's a great resource for teachers. I highly recommend it.
Okay, great job. And the only other thing that I want to make sure is that we provide our teachers with the needed professional development. Time is flying. I mean, I'm already done at my campus with the kids, and so, you know, summer will be over before you know it, and they'll be back face to face. So, you know, what is a timeline for you to pray with all these different resources? I know with the monies isn't a problem, especially with ESSER funds. We've got money to
like
spend,
that.
which is great. But what is a timeline
Yes, sir.
to be able to provide the professional development and give each teacher the due diligence so that they learn the program and utilize it to its potential?
Yes, I've been working with Ms. Ramirez. I've reached out to these companies, and we have those dates. We're holding on to those dates pending board approval for everything. They've got those dates tentatively written down for us, and once we get the go-ahead, we're going to go ahead and follow through.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So your second question was, what are we going to do about that, you know? And how are we preparing the teachers? So in essence, that's what this whole presentation is about, the different aspects of there's many facets to how we're going to remedy the situation. There isn't one panacea. You can't take a pill that'll fix it. So our approach is multifaceted, as I mentioned. So 3 areas that I'm focused on in secondary are the curriculum writing aspect, which Ms. Cornett also touched on. The curriculum writing includes pacing guides, rewriting those assessments that will no longer be aligned to our previous scope and sequence, and then actually writing out some activities. And there will be a lot of training going on with the people who are helping to write these documents, these guiding documents. Then we have our department resources. So we're looking to use this money to purchase some Very important things like microscopes, scopes, and calculators. Microscopes are not so good. Microscopes are really good. Professional development, as Ms. Cornett mentioned, we work very closely with Ms. Ramirez. A lot of the professional development is mixed in with the purchase of X software or Y software. But the big things we do hit at the beginning of the year, and then there's built-in PD, so you can plan to have it continuously throughout the year, and then as need arises. Plus, we have instructional coaches that are constantly picking up the slack, and when they go into the PLCs, they can reiterate things that the teachers have been trained on and provide more reinforcement there. Okay, so our next section is instruction.
Ms. Burnett, I'm going to go and interject right now, and I'm going to give you guys a little breather, because I know you guys have been at it for about 15, 20 minutes now. So I know it's a little stressful, but I've been extremely blessed to be here, for a number of years, and I've seen this district go in a positive direction. And as a parent, first and foremost, when we say as a board here that, is a gold standard in education, I just want to extend a huge congratulations to each and every one of y'all here, because this is as a parent, to me, this is amazing. This is amazing work to see everything in our school district, all the stress and anxiety that's been going on for the past year with this, unprecedented time, and, to see the transition that each and every one of you have gone through, and the stress amongst our teachers and our kids and everything else, and for you guys to come together and put this wonderful process together to continue in the gold standard, philosophy. I really, really greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all, because this is amazing. So I want to congratulate each and every one of you. I know it's a lot of work. We have a lot of work ahead of us, like we've always said, but these new board members have said it multiple times. We're here to support our staff, and that's what I stand for. So, I'm a parent first, so let's continue going forward, but thank each and every one of y'all. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so San Bernardino CISD utilizes the most effective research-based instructional strategies available. The following section outlines the estimate of instructional expenses that addresses the anticipated summer regression, often referred to as the summer slide. And now we have the gaps resulting for COVID-19 and the adjustment to remote learning. So when we talk about, I'm going to talk about two things here, and then I'll be done. I'm sorry. Summer school and tutorials. So we have summer school this year. We're planning both this year and next year summer school. This year we're doing a 2-week jump start. So right before school starts, we're going to have our kiddos come in, and we'll be doing 2 weeks of intense instruction. And then the following year, we're going to be doing a 4-week full summer school. Also, we are going to have tutorials. We're going to start our tutorials. Usually when we start tutorials in the regular school year, we give a little bit of time. And so we allow a little bit of time, and then we start, our tutorials normally start maybe like in October, late September, early October. We are going to start these immediately. So as soon as, we already know, we have some data. We already know that there's needs. We already know a lot of information about where our students are, and so teachers are going to be working and planning over the summer so that when school starts, they're going to be ready to go. We'll be doing that assessment, the MAP assessment, and as soon as that one is done, we're going to go ahead and continue and start with those tutorials as soon as possible. These tutorials are going to be for targeted groups. It's not just a lot of remediation. We also want to provide enrichment. So we want to make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of our students. And we have a variety of needs throughout our campuses. So we're going to be providing tutorials for our English learners, for our special ed populations. All of those students are going to be receiving the instruction that they need. And also, we believe that it's very important to make sure that we have small group instruction. It's very important to have that very small group targeted instruction for our students. And so that's what we'll be providing. Any questions on that? No?
So I was going to tag her and jump in when she was talking about, speaking with students, or Mr. Lopez, you mentioned that. And we would be happy to share with you some of the specific stories that our students shared with us while we were meeting with them in committee. Some of them will play at your heartstrings. And so taking that information into consideration, we took feedback specifically from parents who were wanting to make sure that their children had virtual tutoring available to them. And so we will be able to provide that with small group assistance and one-to-one interventions, as Ms. Cornett mentioned, via RTI, amongst the after-school tutorials, before-school tutorials, teachers bringing kids in during lunch and whenever else, they can possibly meet with the kiddos.
So this screen that you just showed, it mentions Sylvan. Are we
Yes, sir.
venturing out with Sylvan as well?
We
Right?
are.
Okay.
So that's definitely going to be an excellent component. We want to leave no stone unturned.
You mentioned the virtual tutoring. Are the virtual tutoring sessions going to be small group and one-to-one?
They are going to be both of those types, yes.
Both? Okay, and will you have in-person as well at the campuses?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be our primary. But there are those that want to be able to have access to a teacher once the kids get back home or what have you. So great question. Absolutely, we will. Again, I don't expect you all to be able to see the specifics of these, but what I wanted to do was explain that we have instructional coaches that work through our PLCs daily, and they're reviewing the data and they're working in collaboration with the teachers to pick apart that data and create some strategies. And then what they do is they come back and they just turn around a ton of resources. I can't even tell you, in all fairness to them, how wonderful these resources are on every single, hotspot that they identify. And so what happens is the teachers have an abundance of resources to go back to, not only from the text, not only from TEKS resource system, not only from the software that they provide, but also one-on-one help from the instructional coaches.
Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Carmen, and members of the board. I'm Dr. Patricia Quesada, and I'm the Director for Bilingual and ESL Services. And so, in addition to the information that the curriculum directors shared, the bilingual services support everything that the district is already offering for all students and for all teachers. But we particularly look out for the teachers who are certified in bilingual education or at the secondary level, ESL education. I just want to add one thing to the summer school information that they just shared. So in the summer, we're going to be providing a 4-week summer school program for the pre-K and K bilingual students. And also we will be providing an intensive English program for students at the elementary level from 3rd through 5th. And that is solely enrichment. And so we want to help them that way as well, but it will be a little bit longer period of time. And so what this slide is addressing are some of the additional supports that we will provide through the bilingual services. And we will be offering, or we actually are proposing to offer, professional coaching at both the elementary at the secondary level for the bilingually certified teachers as well as the secondary ESL certified teachers. We also will offer additional professional development sessions on sheltered instruction, educational technology. Sometimes the social and emotional learning is embedded in some of the trainings. We will also look at a newcomer leadership academy that we have already been offering at the high school, where we address the recent immigrants and we address different learning issues as well as acculturation, mentorship, and higher education. In addition to that, we want to provide additional English and Spanish dictionaries because our English learners always benefit from having their own personal dictionary, and I know that schools have them, but this year we're looking at making sure that each student in our school district has one. So these are additional supports, okay? Are there any questions for me? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Carmen and members of the school board. My name is Ernesto Manriquez, and I'm the Special Services Director here in San Benito. In regards with special education, our program will continue working hard to close the gaps for our students, but most importantly, we will work diligently to make sure we meet the unique needs of each particular student, since every student has his or her own IEP. The IEP is an individualized education program. So as we can see in the elementary setting, we will continue with our MTA program for our students that require dyslexia services as part of their instructional plan. In the secondary setting, we will continue with Language Life. That's a program, again, for students that require dyslexia services as part of the instructional plan as well. Now, for our students with special needs, we're looking at our ACU, which is our academically challenged unit or units. We will utilize our unique learning system for our students there. Students in the ACU are students with severe cognitive disabilities, so we want to make sure we leave no students behind. Now, with students that are receiving resource support, as per their IEP, again, their individualized education plan, we will work closely with the program iSpire. And again, these are for kids that, according to their IEP, have reading resource. We will continue with PD, professional development, for our special ed teachers and our related staff personnel, as well as campus personnel. We will continue collaborating with campus administrators to make sure, again, that we're meeting the needs of each student at each respective campus. So that is part of our Rebound plan. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Dr. Carmen, members of the board. My name is Cristina Sandoval, and I'm the Director of Assessment, the one that nobody really likes. Not me, the subject. And so today I'm just going to talk to you about how we're going to support the closing of the learning gap. So basically what we're going to be doing this upcoming year is we're going to continue with a formative assessment. So these are assessments that are administered every 6 weeks, depending on the grade level. If you think about it, it would be kind of like your 6 weeks tests, right? At the high school level, because we're in block schedule, we do it every 3 weeks so that we are in line for the semester testing, for the December testing. We're also going to be implementing NWEA MAP. So that's a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year assessment. And that's basically going to tie in with our teacher incentive allotment. So we needed to implement that. And then, of course, we have our beloved STAR assessments, which are your STAR, your end of course, TELPAS, alternate, STAR alternate, the regular state assessments. So those are the assessments that, from the assessment standpoint, we are going to be focusing on. Those are the ones that I'm going to be basically making sure that we are all on track. If you follow the plan, do they have the plan? Yes, they do. If you follow the plan, they have a year at a glance, which is kind of small, but basically tells you all the assessments that we're going to be having. And you can see clearly that the bulk of our testing happens in the spring. So we're going to have a lot of testing happening. We're going to have a lot in February, March, and then closing the year in May. So do we have any questions?
On the formative assessments, are those cumulative or based on what they've been taught?
They're going to be based on what they've been taught the previous 6 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Carmen, Board President, members of the board. You all have met me before. Okay, so I'm going to talk about supplemental aids. It's going to be short and sweet. But to continue to support our staff and students, San Benito is offering supplemental support in academics and social emotional well-being. So this year, to help address the COVID gap, we are planning 5 themed academies which will be held throughout the school year. These will be different and apart from the regular tutorials that will be offered at each of the campuses. And the intent is to reach identified students for acceleration, remediation, and enrichment. The following academy themes have been proposed for this school year so far. The first one is a Greyhound Inspiration Park theme, and we want to make it fun and exciting so that we can be sure to engage students to continue participating in these academies throughout the school year. The second one is a Greyhound Exploration. It's kind of more like of a discovery type. So we're thinking maybe it might be like a science theme. All of these are still in planning, but these are the ideas that we're kind of putting forward, and we still need to flesh out all the details. Also, we have a Greyhound CIS, Scholorian, which kind of ties into the Mandalorian theme, like Star Wars, that's very popular with the students right now, and then the Senior Endgame, which ties into the Avengers. And the first one, like I mentioned, will be offered at the beginning, possibly sometime in September to kind of kick things off, but then all the other academies, we're going to be offering those during extended days that the students are not in school, such as like the Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, spring break, just to kind of keep students motivated and wanting to learn. That's an example of the Senior Endgame that ties into the Avenger theme. Then the supplemental support for our social emotional learning. This is Ripple Effects, which is a program that Mr. Eddie Sudis recommended to Ms. Alvarado. So it has been purchased for the district to help meet the individual needs and support the mental health of our staff and our students. Some of the things that it offers is direct-to-learner personalized interventions. So it uses natural selection patterns to deliver the most relevant set of evidence-based practices to each learner based on personal concerns. Also, digital planning and assessment tools. So there is an individual playlist creator which draws from existing treatment plans. There's also a group playlist creator, so depending on what is selected, this program can also create groups if needed. The data management piece will offer documentation as well as easy-to-group individual reports for dosage and scores. And throughout the year, we will have implementation support for sustainable success. And of course, our department, Professional Development Department, will be working with our elementary, secondary, bilingual, and special services directors to help support with professional development, with everything that will be offered for our students and for our staff. And Mr. Mono, you asked a question, you've been asking too about when we're going to offer this. So some of it will be ongoing throughout the year, but we are targeting a lot of professional development during the teacher in-service days, which will be August 5th and 6th. Okay, so of course we will continue to support all of our departments so that we can continue being the gold standard in public education.
I want to mention a great job, kudos to your department, Ms. Alvarado, and ladies and gentlemen, this is very well put together. I'm proud to say that except for Summit K-12 and Dreambox, I'm pretty much familiar with all the other resources that you're purchasing for our teachers, and most importantly for our students. The only thing, again, professional development, and because I'm an educator as well, I realize that, you know, we go above and beyond to provide that professional development within a matter of a couple of days, like you mentioned, and sometimes it's not enough. So I'm going to suggest, and this is something that we can schedule at a later time, but I would like to see these programs in action, and maybe perhaps sometime October, November, if not earlier, maybe your team, Ms. Alvarado, can provide our board with something like a gallery walk where we can have administrators from the campuses come and present what's working, you know, and even what's not working, but so that we can make sure that everything is being used with fidelity. And again, ultimately, we're going to see the outcomes in student performance. So again, I'm hoping that we do continue to hold on to that gold standard. So thank you all, very well put together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, once again, I want to thank each and every one. I don't know if you guys are done yet, but you're done? Okay, great. Okay, good. Just real quick, just to recap, you know, what I said or what Mr. Moreno said, but more importantly, you know, I think right now is a prime time for us to reach out to our parents, and I know what this whole process is, just, you know, just to recapture our kids, to make sure they come back. But I know we're taking a goal step forward, because I know you guys have done a tremendous job, and it's very evident. So once again, I want to thank you guys so much, and, you know, we got to recapture these kids, they got to come back, so that's whatever we need to do it, you know, let's put our best foot forward. But just, once again, as a parent, and I've seen this transition of, you know, of the district going in a positive direction, then COVID hit, now we're rebuilding again. But you know what, you guys are an awesome team, we have an awesome staff throughout the whole school district, and we just got to sell it to our parents again, once again, and you know, it's like any other business, you know, we got to prove to them that we are the gold standard and the best school district of education here in the Valley. So let's move forward, and you got our support. So once again, thank you, each and every one of you, for your hard work. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Moreno, one of the things that we did this year was our Hounds Academy, and that's helping support our new teachers, especially with all these e-learning platforms. So what we did is we met with them every month and we would try to review, make sure they had that support. Because some of our teachers have been here, you know, we're really familiar, but as a new teacher, it's, you know, you mentioned that, and you're right, it's very overwhelming. So one of the new initiatives was to continue to follow up, especially with our new 0 to, I think it was 2-year teachers, making sure that they felt comfortable with all these, you know, learning systems that we had in place here at San Benito. So that's another, and we'll continue that next year as well.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarado. Appreciate that.
These software programs that you all have in place right now, were they also in place this past year?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to find out what the utilization was on them? Were they being used for a good percentage of time, or how did that look?
Yeah, we have reports. We know that it was not where we wanted it to be, due to the fact that some of the students, when they're at home, you know, we don't have control of them. You know, they had times where they were supposed to log on, but at times they didn't. So the usage wasn't exactly where we wanted it to be. So, and we knew that because we had so many of our students still at home. But we'll continue to monitor and set those goals for next year.
What would you say the percentage of usage was?
Ms. Cornett, Ms. Gomez, we talked about that, but do you?
Our usage in elementary went down maybe about 20 to 30% based on, because several of these, or all of them, we've had them in the past. And so based on
What we had, yeah.
normal usage, the percentage was down about 20 to 30%. Again, like Ms. Alvarado mentioned, it was included in the students' daily schedule, but
Right.
considering that most of our students were working remotely from home,
Yeah.
there was no way to actually implement or to ensure that they're being implemented with fidelity. But once they're back on campus, that's part of their instructional day, and we'll be back when we need to be.
And what's the normal usage?
Usage varies. It's usually depending on the grade level in the program, because it's targeted support. I would say it's maybe about 50%. iStation is really high. 50% maybe for our lower grades, because we have other programs for them. So it depends. It varies on the grade level and the content. STEM Scopes is used really high in the 4th and 5th grade. 5th grade has very high usage for STEM Scopes. But what happens is the teachers log into STEM Scopes. We don't see a lot of usage in the lower grades for students, because that's used more for collaborative work. So it's like in little groups while the teachers are working with the students. So the usage is there, but it's a great resource for the teachers and the students.
But we could bring the actual reports from 1920 for all of our programs compared to 2021. So you'd have actual minutes per student used per program, and then we would have actual data. We could do that at the next committee, next curriculum committee meeting.
Dr. Carmen, not 1920 though. That's too far back.
No, I'm saying to show a comparison.
That's gonna be a long meeting.
Just an overview of what the students used in 1920. How many minutes they were on versus 2021.
I got scared there for a while. Okay, no, we understood, sir. I do have another question. The campuses that are at a D rating and an F rating, are you all doing anything different for those campuses aside from what the plan is right now that you're showing us?
Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, my campuses met this morning. What they do is they turn in regular progress cycle monitoring. I think that they met with some successes and some things that they need to readdress, but every meeting that we've had with TEA has been very positive. And are there particular things that they are doing? Yes, they're specific to their plans. And so without getting into too much detail, we're using an effective schools framework, and they have to identify prioritized areas. And then with each prioritized area, they have to come up with a target, a 90-day, goal. And so there's a tremendous amount of feedback there. Now, for those schools, they were considered natural disaster. So they were headed, they're actually, the feedback that I got from my predecessor was that they were headed to being off of the TIP plan, but unfortunately COVID hit. But all of the assessments that were leading up to the end, to STAR, that was gonna show, it was kind of a double-edged sword because, well, a lot of teachers were like, phew, we're not counting STAR. Then all of a sudden it was the second, wait a minute, we're not counting STAR, and that was gonna take us off of TIP. So I think that they were frustrated because they were ready to be done and they were looking like they were heading in that direction, and then COVID had its impact. So your question is an excellent one, and we could go over the TIP if you want, and I can show you specifically what those campuses have outlined. They're quite detailed, and like I mentioned, each of them have 3 specific areas that they have identified from self-assessments.
Well, thank you for that suggestion. I will take you up on it. And
Sure.
if Dr. Carmen and Mr. Moreno will agree to it, then it would be nice to get a further presentation on how to help those campuses that were considered underperforming by TEA.
In elementary, we have Frank Roberts as our, and so actually had a phone call with Mr. Diaz today because we are also submitting our TIP. And we are doing, Frank Roberts is working very, very hard. One of the things that we're noticing is, of course, it's a young staff. It's a newer teacher staff. So today we were specifically talking about what we're going to do to go ahead and help those teachers. And so we're talking about, I don't want to give you specifics, but one of the things we're talking about is having the teachers work in collaborative groups with other teachers that have been identified to have experience and had been doing well. So giving those teachers opportunities to sit down and plan with the other teachers throughout the course of the year. I think that's very important. It was part of the conversation. But there's a lot of great things. Again, Mr. Diaz and his team, he's got a phenomenal team, and they've been working very hard. If you had the opportunity to go and visit the campus when he first arrived and to where it is today, it's really made significant gains. I feel bad the fact that the scores, unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, don't reflect the great work that's happening there. But I am confident that next year, once we get all the children back on campus, that we're going to start seeing those significant gains picking up.
I like that idea, Ms. Cornett, that you mentioned teachers, basically teachers teaching teachers, because every campus is going to have their pockets of excellence. And by doing that, by pairing them off or having them work collaboratively, you're building capacity. So that's a great strategy all the way around.
Thank you.
And just a little bit more on what you said, that there has been great strides. How are y'all measuring yourself on those great strides that are happening? Is there any data or any information?
Well, we have a couple of things. First of all, just the environment from walking in. You can sense it just from seeing the environment. It's a visual observation, number one. Number two, again, the scores are not where we would want them to be, but one of the things that when we were talking to our collaborator from Region 1 when we're going over our plan, one of the things we're looking at is growth. And even though the scores are not there, we're seeing consistent growth in the students. The students are making some gains, and so that's a positive thing that we're looking at. I can't give you lots of numbers on things because this year has not lent itself to that. But just, again, what's going on over there, the communicating with his team, with his teachers, it's a very different environment, and you'll be seeing that data next year.
One more thing that I'd like to mention, though, when you're mentioning about students making gains, as an administrator, I don't think that STAR is a true reflection of anything at this point. And so as the year progresses, as the year goes along, the formative assessments that you provide the campuses with, and the progress, especially even with those students coming face-to-face, and even those that are virtual learners, you continue to try to engage them, you continue to try to get them to participate in those assessments as well. And that's, to me, that's more relevant data than STAR is at this point. Next year, moving forward, that we have everybody back face-to-face, God willing, I think we'll hopefully have a true picture. And yes, you're absolutely correct. I had the privilege of going out to Frank Roberts just a couple of weeks ago when we recognized Mrs. Nezer for Elementary Teacher of the Year, and just walking into that campus, it gives you a good feeling. That's my stomping ground. So, but it is a good feeling, and it's very inviting, and I'm sure that the students are welcomed every day, and that their SEL is being adhered to. So it's going to be great to see the end result after all the hard work that we put in this coming year, at the end of the year.
Yes, sir.
One last question.
Okay.
The mentor-teacher program, do you all have that here in San Benito? Is there a mentor-teacher program?
There is a mentor teacher. Each new teacher is assigned a mentor on campus as part of, but they also had the Hounds program this year as well.
What's the Hounds program?
The one that Ms. Alvaro was just referencing.
That's
okay.
working with our new teachers and meeting with them every month. We did it virtually, so it's a little more challenging virtually, but those meetings were specifically for teachers 0 to 2 years to gain, for support. And then they would also have times where they would converse in those, in that session, so they met each other and they could help each other, from different campuses.
Wonderful. Thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Alvarado and Ms. Cornett. But what I want to do is encourage all the board members that haven't been to Frank Roberts. Like Mr. Moreno said, I was also very fortunate to have been chosen for board recognition. And when I walked in there, it's an amazing environment. The staff is wonderful. And it is an amazing place. So I really encourage our board members to just to go out there and see what it's about. So I want to congratulate that staff there too. I know they're going through some tough times, but everybody is. So we're here to support them 100%. So once again, thank you all so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to agenda item 2.2, review and discussion of memorandum of understanding between San Benito CISD and Serving Children and Adults in Need Incorporated, SCAN Incorporated, for the 2021-2022 school year. Ms. Alvarado?
Yes, thank you. I have Mr. Hauser, who's going to expand a little bit more on our MOU. Mr. Hauser? Mr. Hauser is our PRC and SCAN principal.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Carmen, members of the board, Mr. President. This MOU is for RGV Youth Recovery, which is also known as SCAN, Serving Children and Adults in Need. It is a private residential drug rehab facility, which is located in Rangerville. They typically have about 16 students. That's the max. They're all young men. They're court-based. They've been placed there by the judge. Some of them are voluntary. They go there for anywhere from 30 days to 60 days to 90 days to 120 days. Some are there 3 days. It all depends on their behavior, how they adjust in these things. We have 4 teachers who I split between PRC and SCAN. 2 go in the morning, 2 go in the afternoon. In that way, we can provide all the core area subjects to those students. They're there in that facility. They have very intensive counseling. And so a lot of counseling goes on during the day, during breaks and things of that nature. But it's a pretty standard MOU. We've been serving them for, well, the whole time that I've been at PRC and before that. So it's a good setup. It's good for those kids. A lot of them are successful, and that's a good thing. Are there any questions about SCAN? It's actually a private business. It's a private-owned facility. And so, yeah, the students go in there. Yeah, the public facilities are Darrell Hester and Amador Rodriguez, places like that.
About how many students do we have there?
Right now, I think we have 14, but their max is 16. So that's in the MOU states that they can have no more than 16 students. And so right now we are face-to-face. Prior to that, we were, of course, virtual. Then we moved on to a hybrid schedule, and now we are back face-to-face with them. But all the protocols are in place. You know, we ensure that we have the shields, we have the face mask, we have the hand sanitizer, we're social distancing, all of that. Now, the meals are provided by Scan, so that's a plus for us. You know, they're out there at that facility.
It's a wonderful program. I've heard of them before. I've talked to people there.
It seems to be. You know, they take kids away from where they're from to try to get them out of that element a little bit and get them out. So it's good. It's good. You do see them make gains.
Mr. Hauser, does a SCAN have their own faculty, or is that, are these faculty members selected from among district teachers?
The faculty that's out there are actually teachers that are assigned to the Positive Redirection Center. So at the Positive Redirection Center, I have 7 teachers. 4 of those teachers are also assigned to SCAN. So 2 will go out in the morning, they'll report first thing in the morning. Instead of coming to PRC, they go directly to SCAN. They provide their 2 90-minute blocks, the core areas, and then after lunch, they come back to PRC to service our kids, and then the other 2 teachers will go out for the afternoon, take care of it, they go home from there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item? Agenda item. Let's move on to 2.3. Thank you, Hauser.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 2.3, review and discussion memorandum of understanding between San Luis CISD and Texas A&M AgriLife 4-H charter agreement for the 21-22 school year.
This MOU is for our after-school program, so I have our director, Mrs. Nancy Casas, who will be expanding on that.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Carmen, members of the board. How are y'all doing today? Happy Tuesday, everyone. Ms. Ramirez is helping me pass out a fact sheet on just a little bit of information for the AgriLife extension. We utilize this program in our after-school program. It's a resource that we have. They actually provide training for our instructors after school in robotics. They also provide in health education as far as proper nutrition, gardening, photography. During the livestock show, our kids compete in photography, fashion show. They do several things in partnership with the livestock show. So the fact sheet is in there. I also have some statements in there from Ms. Guadalupe Castro, which is our specialist that works directly with our district. There's also a statement in there from a parent, which is also a school employee, a principal, and there's 2 student statements. So the students come directly from Sullivan Elementary. So our Sullivan Environmental Science Academy is one of our campuses that utilizes these resources a little more after-school program because of the gardening that they do have and the agriculture as far as the animals that they do have on campus. That campus actually has, sheep. They have a sheep there, they have rabbits, they have several animals that the students are able to care for after school and learn about. Does anyone have any questions?
How big is that facility? How many animals can they have? Can each one?
It's not a very big facility. They probably have maybe about 10 rabbits. They have 1 sheep, and they also have a few chickens on the facilities. It's really neat.
I think this is really awesome that we provide this for our 4-H kids. I know at 3rd grade level you get to be in junior FFA, but to have this at Sullivan is really great. I saw that our student won grand champion in the horticulture division this year, so this is awesome.
Yes,
that
and it was a 5th grade student from Sullivan.
Yeah, this is awesome that we're able to provide this for our students.
Thank you.
You guys have to go out to Sullivan too and meet the sheep. It's
Yes,
great.
most definitely.
Yeah, the teacher out there, she was my teacher when I was in high school, so.
So no steers or hogs?
No,
Not yet.
Save that for Sunny Brazil.
unless we can build a bigger facility there.
All right, cool.
That's great.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right.
What makes
Thank
it
y'all.
even better is that it's free, right?
Yes.
Doesn't cost us anything,
Yes.
so exciting stuff for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you all, have a good evening.
Agenda item? All right. Then move on to agenda item 2.4, review and discussion memorandum of understanding between San Luis CISD and Cameron County Juvenile Justice Department for the 21-22 school year. Mr. Lorado?
Yes, we're going to cover 2.4, 2.5, and 2.6. I have Chief Gomez and Assistant Chief Romero herewith to explain each of the MOUs.
Good evening, Mr. Board President, Dr. Carmen, Board of Trustees. It's been a long time since I've been here, and the last time I was here, I think there was a seating area. But yes, my name is Rose Gomez, and with me is Deputy Director Annie Romero. And we're very proud to be here before you, even under these circumstances, to share that we've had such a strong partnership with your school district. Dr. Carmen and his staff, we're able to have 3 MOUs that are presented before your board's consideration. And the biggest one is our probation officers being at your campuses, which is a high school and the middle school. It's a cost-effective approach where we're able to offset leverage some resources for our probation officers, as well as the school district, providing some funds to offset 2 probation officers that are housed at your high school campus and at your VMA, and of course, your PRC and your gateway. The other MOU that we're presenting before you is at a no-cost educational services. I call it our pre and post, but it's our Darrell B. Hester Detention Center and Amado Rodriguez Juvenile Boot Camp and Life Program. We have excellent teachers that are there providing right now virtual education to our students, our residents in our detention center and our post-residential, as well as I believe we begin summer school on June the 21st, and that's going to be in person. And the third MOU that's being presented to you is the JJP, the Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. That is an MOU that is given to all the school districts in regards to expelled students that are required based on Chapter 37 education services. I'll entertain any questions if you have any regarding any of the MOUs, or if not, I have Ms. Romero here who can help me answer some of those questions.
I do have a question. What would be the role of the probation officers here at the school district when they're on campus?
The role has been pretty much continuous. They're there to work with your school administrators in regards to the kids the juveniles that are on probation. It is confidential, but it's on a need-to-know basis. They check up on their compliance and attendance of school, grades, tutorial. We also provide a lot of crisis intervention. These are students that are already showing, I don't always say the word deviancy, but already acting out. So it's good that our probation officers, they're seasoned, experienced probation officers, and they'll share the consequences if they continue this type of negative behavior in the classroom.
I imagine that that's helpful to the students to have that extra support, someone to reach out to when they need to talk to somebody.
And Ms. Lopez, very much so. We're advocates for your students because they're our kids too. And we believe in second chances and sometimes third and fourth chances. So yes, we're here to work closely with your school officials and your teachers to make sure that they succeed. I forgot to mention that we have an excellent GED program through the support of Dr. Carmen and his teachers there at our Amado Rodriguez. So hopefully we'll have a graduation. I know we had a graduation several years ago with some of our post-residential kids. While they're there, they're also getting their GED. So hopefully we'll do something in the next 6 to 9 months if time allows.
That's awesome. Thank you for helping our kids and helping them turn their life around, because I know that, you know, despite circumstances that they might live through, if we can give them that helping hand to guide them and lead them in the right direction, a lot of our kids can be successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for your support.
And I know Ms. Gomez is a very good professional, very knowledgeable, and I know that we will have a good working relationship with you as well, Ms. Gomez. Thank you very much. Glad to see you here.
Thank you. It's good seeing all of you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Excuse us.
Agenda item?
Yes.
Okay. Then move on to agenda item 2.7, reviewing discussion of the service agreement between San Benito CISD and Houghton Milford Harcourt for the International Center of Leadership and Education for the 21-22 school year.
Yes, thank you. We have a very short presentation. We have Mrs. Stephanie Ramirez, and also we have Mr. Mark White, who is here with us today, and he is very, very devoted to our teachers, to our district. We're very lucky to have him, and he's here with us quite a bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Stephanie.
Agenda item?
Good afternoon once again. So before I begin my presentation, I would just like to say we started with this ICLE partnership back in 2018-19. And I will have to say that having gone through this COVID year, I will say that a lot of the feedback that we've heard from a lot of the teachers and administrators is that this work actually prepared everyone the best that it could for what we had to experience moving into having to teach virtually. So I don't know if Dr. Carmen knew something was going to happen. Okay. No, but it did help everyone, and I think it was just a very tough year for everyone, but some of the things and some of the tools that the teachers have learned kind of made that transition a little more, easier. The other thing with our ICLE partnership, this is ongoing throughout the whole entire year, so it's not just professional development that we receive once and then we're let go. Mr. White is very well known at all of our campuses. Administrators and teachers are asking, when is Mr. White coming back? The students know who Mr. White is also because he visits our campuses so much. He already wears a lot of San Benito gear also. And the other thing I want to point out is that the work that we do with ICLE, it focuses on the lesson design. Okay, so we're looking at the lesson delivery, but this work that we're doing, it's about the teachers planning and looking at the design of their lesson. Okay. Oh, is there a PowerPoint? Okay. So just real briefly, this will be a brief presentation, but if you want a more in-depth presentation, 2 years ago, I did a presentation to the board. I think, Mr. Lopez, you were part of that board at that time, but it is on our website if anybody wants to see that presentation. Just a lot of information during that time. Today, I just want to just briefly talk about how the partnership with ICLE came about, discuss what the rigor and relevance framework is, because that is what we use when we go into the classrooms to do observations and what we measure our lessons with, and then just kind of go over the results as well. So just to touch on the points as to how this came about, back in 2016, a curriculum audit was conducted, and through this audit, the auditors that came in from TASA, which is the Texas Association of School Administrators. They did observations in all of our classrooms. They also conducted interviews with all teachers at all campuses, administrators, directors, superintendents, different departments. They collected samples of student work from all grade levels, all subject areas, all campuses. So they went through an extensive study of the work that was being produced by our students at that time. And one of the things that they found was that although teachers were teaching, the work that was being produced was not at the level where it needed to be to have our students be ready for assessments or for, be college and career ready. The audit focuses on 5 standards, and I'm only going to touch on the 3 that kind of help support the work that we're doing with ICLE. So standard 1 under governance and leadership, finding 1.3, quality planning is emerging, but important elements of planning and plans are missing or are inadequate to guide central and campus decision-making and meeting district goals. So although planning was taking place, there was a lack of alignment, and there needs to be an alignment with what is being, what the curriculum is, what needs to be taught, and the assessment. Under curriculum audit finding standard number 2, curriculum and instruction, finding 2.1, the district lacks a comprehensive curriculum management plan to guide the design and delivery of the written curriculum. So at this time, there was not a clear and consistent method for the design and the delivery of the lessons. And under standard 3, equality, equity, and connectivity, the district provides an array of professional development opportunities. However, a comprehensive professional development plan is not in place to provide long-range direction, assure system coordination, and conduct evaluation in terms of desired student achievement. So professional development was being offered, but it was not targeted professional development. Another finding under standard 3 was that instructional strategies and activities observed during classroom visits are not consistent with commonly accepted effective practices known to positively impact student learning. Student artifacts lack an adequate range of cognitive demands to provide academic success. And monitoring of instruction is inconsistent and lacks sufficient focus to improve curriculum delivery for the success of all students. So at this time, there was no consistency. That was one of the biggest findings. And again, these are only a few of the findings. And there were 7 recommendations made in this audit, and I'm going to touch on 2 of the ones that they recommended. And again, these recommendations were made, and they were not made to be quick fixes, and they actually estimated that in order to start seeing growth, it could take anywhere from 4 to 7 years. So 2 main themes were found in the recommendations, which was systems and structure and planning, which includes intentional implementation and deployment. So recommendation number 2, refine the San Benito CISD planning process to focus human and financial resources towards achieving the institutional mission and goals. And recommendation number 3 was to develop and implement a comprehensive curriculum management system to provide continuity and consistency for the design and the delivery of curriculum in all grades and content areas and promote high levels of learning for all students. So recommendation 3 talks about developing a plan, whereas recommendation number 5 targets supporting the implementation of that plan. So when we talk about curriculum, we think about what is being taught and how it is being taught. So TEKS resource system is the what, and we're using the ICLE strategies for the how. The ICLE trainings enhance the lesson design by targeting student thinking and relevance, which also positively impacts student engagement. Another instrument that kind of helped lead to this partnership with ICLE was our strategic plan. So the strategic plan focuses on curriculum and instruction and other things, but of course we're focusing on curriculum and instruction. And 2 of the findings for the strategic plan was strategic priority number 2, which focuses on professional development, and number 3, which focuses on technology. Okay. So the San Benito CISD and ICLE partnership came about because of the findings from the curriculum audit and also the goals in our strategic plan. And it was established in response to the curriculum audit, which was conducted in 2016, and again, our strategic plan. Student engagement is also being targeted with the use of technology in the classroom as the district moves to a blended learning approach. And this is also the time, too, when we also incorporated the one-on-one initiative. So students also had their laptops and so forth. And in addition, when the superintendent came on board, one of the goals expected of him at that time was to develop a plan and to have quality-aligned professional development, which is provided through the plan with ICLE. Okay, now I'd like to just kind of be a teacher at the moment and kind of go over the rigor relevance framework so you understand what Mr. White or any of the administrators look for when they're in the classroom. So you should have received a chart. Did you all receive that? Okay. So when we look at that chart, as we move on the left side of the grid, the level of rigor increases as you move up on the levels of student thinking. So you start at remembering and you go all the way up to creating. And then as you move on the right along the bottom of the grid, you move from knowledge in one discipline and move to application in real-world situations, which is known as relevance. So we're going to walk through an example of a lesson so you can see how a lesson will change. So if we look at quadrant A is the most basic level where knowledge is acquired. So this quadrant is crucial as it serves as a platform and foundation for all other levels, and the knowledge itself must be understood before it can be applied. An example of a quadrant A lesson could be a student learning to count coins or the value of each coin. Now, when we move to quadrant B, a student can learn to count coins in class and then go to the store and actually buy an item while counting the coins necessary to make that purchase. So now he or she is starting to apply the knowledge. Now moving to a quadrant C would entail a much higher level of knowledge in addition to connecting that knowledge to other disciplines. So for example, extending the knowledge of coins towards understanding more complex economic concepts such as, supply and demand. This would be a characteristic of moving to a quadrant C lesson. Then quadrant D, teachers may ask a student to use their knowledge of U.S. currency and current U.S. economic problems to create a realistic strategy to increase funds for their current school. And one of the great things about quadrant D lessons is that teachers will propose something, ask the students to do something, but the teacher's not always going to know what the student's going to respond or what they're going to put out. And it's okay, because that is real world. So also question stems are provided to the teachers to use while they are planning, and those are the questions that you see at the bottom portion of what was handed to you today. So any questions on the quadrants or what we look for?
I have a question. You said that when the teachers are planning, they have these question stems at the different levels of rigor.
If they need them, they can use them.
Okay.
They don't always, some of them have, because we've been doing this for 3 years, some of them already understand what type of question would lead to rigor and to relevance.
Okay, so as a school administrator, I go in and that's what I look for as well, the rigor, because you walk into any classroom and usually what I find is very low levels of the questioning is just at depth of knowledge 1. So in looking at this item right here, I love it. And so my suggestion, if you may, it may be something that's already been implemented, is have you all even considered, maybe it's already being done, to maybe enlarge these for teachers' classrooms and have them on the wall so that they can utilize that while they're questioning the students at the different levels?
If you go to the schools, they should have them in their PLC rooms, because that's usually where they plan. So they should have them in their PLC room, and then all the teachers do have a copy of that.
Great
And
job.
the other thing that you mentioned rigor, but the other thing that's also included when they're planning is the relevance. So this is how can you connect it to the students. So like earlier I talked about the academies, right? And how we're trying to tie those into things that are popular for students, such as the Avengers or the Mandalorian, because those are things, when you say those words, you're going to get students' attention right away. So when you're planning lessons, if you've got someone that's playing football, then you want to talk about football, or if it's ballet, then you want to talk about ballet, something that the students are going to catch on to. If it's going to be Walmart, something that's real to them. Okay. Now, I'd just like to go over our results over the 3 years.
If I may, ma'am, before you move on.
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
these questions tied into the TEKS? And earlier you all mentioned everything you're doing in the classroom is tied into the TEKS or the VAGs and all those different acronyms that you all used, right? So just want to...
It can be. It really depends. And again, because when you look at the TEKS too, there's verbs in there too of things that are expected to be taught, right?
Yes.
So when you're planning a lesson though, you're trying to incorporate question stems or questions that you want to ask the students, but knowing that your question is going to relate to rigor and to relevance. Okay, so these are just the stems. This is just opening up the question. There's going to be more to that question.
Right. Okay. And I'm just asking because, for example, if they have a question here, can you describe your reasoning? Was that something that they're going to be seeing in the STAR exams as well? I know what you're saying, like you're trying to teach them higher level thinking, but I'm also trying to figure out how it's tied into the STAR exam that they're going to be taking also. I think this is great. Don't get me wrong, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great tool, and especially for teachers when they're having to do small group teaching. I think that this would be great as well. But I just want to see how it's tied into the STAR, if it is going to help them or not.
Oh, it will. It will. And especially as they move their lessons to quadrant C and quadrant D, it will. Okay. Do you want to add anything, Mark?
Yeah, if I could add to that, what happens is many times when you work in the upper levels of rigor, it's teaching the student to think, to analyze, to evaluate, and when they're reading the STAR passages, working a STAR math problem, they're having to analyze the passage and the possible answers. So high rigor carries across a lot of this, and like Ms. Ramirez was saying, some of the same verbs are here are also in the TEKS. Students might be asked to analyze, might be asked to evaluate something. So it does cross over.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to our results? So one of the things, our district goals with ICLE is that 25% of our lessons are quadrant D. And again, like I mentioned when I went over quadrant A, sometimes you are going to have lessons at quadrant A, especially if you're introducing a new concept. And also, some people think that you're always going to have low level or quadrant A, quadrant B lessons in the lower grades. That's not necessarily true, because we have walked into classrooms, kindergarten classrooms, where the teacher is teaching at quadrant D. It's amazing to watch that. And we don't want to hold any of our students back, so we want to push our lessons up to quadrant C and quadrant D when appropriate. So looking at our results, if you look at the column that's in red on the PowerPoint, this was conducted on May 2018. So ICLE came in the year before we actually started with professional development and our partnership with ICLE. They came in to evaluate where our lessons were at that time. And at that time, if you notice, quadrant A lessons were at 52%. Quadrant B were at 29, quadrant C were 15, and quadrant D, we only had 4% of the lessons that were observed at 4. So when we got these results, and that of course is not where we want to be. So we set our goals that we wanted, again, 25% of our lessons to be at quadrant D, and also the 25% of the time teachers or students were using technology. So if we look at round 1, so when Mr. White visits our campuses, I work with the principals in coming up with the schedule, and each campus is visited 4 times. So each round represents the four times that Mr. White is at their campus. So if you notice round 1, and I'm going to focus really only on quadrant D because that's the one that ties in with our goal. Quadrant D, after round 1, after we had 210 teachers trained, because that's the other thing, we trained 210 teachers each year. The first group of teachers were the only ones that Mr. White visited that first year, okay, because we wanted to measure what was happening in the classrooms. And we went from a 4% to 24%. And I will tell you, I'm very proud to say this is the only time that we did not meet the 25%. And we were at 24%. And you can see moving along the rounds, we went to 34%, to 55%, and then to 38%. And one of the things that we were kind of surprised with round 4 that it dropped, even though it was above, we were still excited that it was above the 25%. But what happens in the fall is we have STAR testing during that time. In the spring. In the spring, yes, I'm sorry. So during that time, there was a little more focus on STAR, and it kind of changes things a little bit. But again, we were still producing great lessons. Then you can also see the use of technology at the bottom. So those were our results for year 1. Then looking at year 2, which was last year, again, we started pretty strong at 48% for quadrant D, 56 for round 2, and round 3 we were at 55. And unfortunately, we didn't have our round 4 because we were hit with COVID. But you can also see the use of technology has also stayed pretty strong. And this is year 2, so we trained a different group of 210 teachers. However, Mr. White would monitor the year 2 teachers, but he would also still visit year 1 teachers. And that's one great thing I think that we've done with ICLE, that we train our teachers, but we're back with them every year. The other thing that's been happening on all of the campuses is that the administrators are talking about rigor and relevance during faculty meetings, during PLC meetings. So there's a common language across the district, which is really important. And then our results as of right now, we can look at round 1. We started at 39%, and that's a little bit lower than we have in the other years. But again, this is the first year that we had to teach virtually, which was new for everyone, right? And I will say at the beginning of the year, we did do a lot of professional development, not only with ICLE, but a lot on helping and supporting our teachers transition to teaching virtually. Round 2 was at 38%, still above our goal. Round 3 and round 4, you can see that I think teachers are really comfortable teaching virtually. We're at 57 and 59%. And I'd like Mr. White to kind of share with you too what he has seen this year, because it was just a year that no one ever expected.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I've been blessed to do a lot of cool things in my career, but working with the San Benito teachers and administrators has been one of the highlights of my career. I really enjoy working with the people here. They're bright, they work hard, they want to get better, and they are getting better, you can see right here. I would put some of the teaching I've seen in San Benito School up against teaching anywhere. As someone who has been in schools from New York City to Southern California, I worked in China, I'm a former principal, superintendent, teacher myself. You can be very proud of what's going on here. And looking at this, you'll see that in the round 1 and 2, they were just trying to hold on. They were learning how to use the cameras, learning how to go from screen to screen. But then once they got the hang of it, this showed us that the rigor and the relevance is here to stay with them. And I've had teachers tell me that this has changed the way they look at teaching and always will. And I would put what's going on in San Benito up against any school district anywhere out there that ICLE is working with. And so San Benito is well known within ICLE for the progress that's being made here. I report back to them and say, look at the cool things they're doing down here. So I'm very proud of this district. I hope you are too. I know you are.
The progress made despite COVID is amazing. It's great. It is great to hear that we're teaching that rigor and relevance for our kids. I'm very proud of this program.
Thank you.
Mr. White.
Thank you. And one of the challenges we had this year, I saw that the teachers getting better. The challenge was getting the students logged in and paying attention. So the teaching was there. And, you know, and even some of the campuses that have been struggling, I've seen the improvement in the teaching. And I know what the leadership is doing. But the weird thing about this year is the teaching has been there, but it's been more up to the student to somehow get logged in and engaged. That's been the challenge.
If I may ask.
Yes.
I noticed that on column B, on quadrant B, the percentages decreased greatly to 2%, 1% on round 3, round 4. How do we know what percentages would be good? And the reason I came up with this question is because when I was a teacher, let's say, for example, you're looking at data. They tell you, okay, look at your data. TEK 1, kids did good. TEK 2, they did okay also. TEK 3, they didn't, right? Then there was a shift. Oh, let's work on TEK 3 now, right? And so then there was a shift that we were focusing so much on TEK 3, but not the others, that then the kids started performing worse on TEK 1 and TEK 2. You know, so what I'm interested in, how do we know that it is balanced and that they're not going to miss out on something that they are supposed to teach as well?
The only, the only way to get to quadrant D is if you use the levels of rigor to scaffold up to it. From remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating, that gets up to quadrant C. Relevance is quadrant D. So if they're working in quadrant B at 1%, that means the rigor is low, but it was still relevant. We'd like for it to get up to D. And so you don't want to have necessarily a balance of all these. If I had my way, we'd have 100% in quadrant D, but lessons don't always lend themselves to that. You'll walk into some of my trainings and some of these classrooms, and they might be an A in the 20-minute snapshot I'm there, or maybe in my training and I'm not there for that long, but we tell people just don't stay in the low rigor, low relevance for too long, get it up there. So if you see low numbers around quadrants A or B, that's a good thing. That's low rigor, low relevance.
Thank you for explaining that.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm going to say this is the only time that you don't want an A or a B on your report card. And then as the only last comment I have is about funding. So funding, we use federal funds to pay for our initiative with ICLE. Okay.
Ms. Ramirez, this services agreement that we've got in front of us, and I know this is more than likely going to turn into an agenda item. These teacher and administrator trainings and the campus days, are these professional development opportunities for our teachers and staff locally? Where you mentioned that Mr. White comes down quite a bit, so
yes.
We're not traveling anywhere, they're coming down to us?
For all of that, that is professional development for our new cohort of teachers that we're going to have at the beginning of the year, so they will receive 2 days of training.
Okay.
Usually September, and then 1 day possibly in October. We're going to work on our calendar for ICLE. And then the rest, a lot of that is administrator training too. I believe there's 4 days for administrators, because one of the things that we're going to focus on too is calibrating. So that way, if you and I walk into the same classroom, you may see things a little bit different than I do, right? But we can have a discussion as to, okay, why did you rate it a C? Why did I rate it a B? You know, and you have those discussions. So we will have administrators working in groups to observe classrooms so that we can collaborate, calibrate. You know, because at some point we will, you know, walk away from ICLE, and this is something that we want to continue in the district. And then the other days are the coaching, what we call the coaching days, and that's when Mr. White visits the campuses.
And it's all local here and trained here.
Good. Well, thank you for being here with us today, Mr. White, and thank you, Ms. Ramirez, for your wonderful short presentation.
Oh, this one was
Great
short
job, though.
compared
Great
to
job.
2 years ago, right?
So this program, the 266,000, that's for all the trainings and the coaching?
For everything, yes.
Does it include materials, books, workbooks, anything like that?
No, there are no materials to this. This is when Mr. White is walking in, you know, coaching on what he's seen, what he's observing, and then giving teacher feedback. So there's a lot of teacher feedback. He works one-on-one with teachers. There's times that the principals will have a group of teachers that will go in to observe. That's another thing. Teachers got comfortable too having more than one person walk into their classroom, because we've done it to where on a campus you might be observing a kinder teacher, but you have all your kinder and first grade teachers walking in. And then Mr. White debriefs with everyone, and which is, some of the teachers have said that that's probably a good way of learning for them, because they're hearing what other people are seeing, maybe something they didn't see, but they get to listen to the feedback that is being provided that they can turn around and implement in their classrooms as well.
And what kind of feedback do you get from the teachers as far as how it's helping the student learning?
There's a lot of great feedback. Again, if the last the presentation I did 2 years ago, I actually had 4 teachers here, and they were also 4 of the teachers that helped present, because we were chosen as a model district, I should say, to present at the model schools 2 years ago. So I had teacher feedback, you know, and student engagement has gone up in the classrooms and in all of our schools.
And I think I can say on every campus this spring, I've had teachers coming up to me asking me if I'm going to be back next year. They actually enjoy the training, and the feedback, it kind of scares them, but they like it at the same time. They know what they have to do.
I remember one time we were debriefing with teachers, and one of the teachers was saying that she sees like a little bubble of, what would Mark say? What would Mark say?
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Just like you all have here, the acquisition, well, all the training you provide to the teachers, that's part of the acquisition, right? And then you're coaching them, so that's part of the application, assimilation, adaptation, right? If you turn it around and use this model on your teachers, right? And so I think that continuing education is very important for our staff and for all our employees here in our district and our teachers. And so I think that this, to me, in my opinion, looks like a good system for y'all to use.
And again, you all are always welcome to come to the professional development that's offered at the beginning of the year, or if you ever want to walk on a campus. You know, I usually would join Mr. White. This year was a little different because of COVID, so I didn't join him very often. But usually when he's on the campus, I'm with him at least an hour or 2 hours every day.
So every dollar used for teacher training and staff, I think that it's very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Once again, thanks for the.
Thank you.
Awesome. Agenda item? Agenda item. 2.8, review and discussion of the license renewal for the Summit to K-12 from 2021-2022 school year.
I don't know if y'all have any questions. These are all renewals from last year.
Agenda item?
I just have one question.
Sure.
These are gonna be through the ESSER funds this year?
Yes, yes, all of these, yes.
Okay, agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, 2.9, review and discussion of the purchase of the Dreambox Learning Digital Program district-wide.
Agenda item.
Agenda item?
Agenda item.
Agenda. 2.10, review discussion of the purchase of the Ingenuity Digital Programs. Agenda item?
Agenda item.
Agenda. 2.11, review and discussion of the purchase of the Nearpod and vocabulary, digital program, vocabulary, yeah. Digital programs. Agenda item. 2.12, review and discussion of the purchase of the Education Galaxy digital programs. Agenda item. 2.13, review and discussion of the purchase of the STEAM Scope digital programs for grade K through 8th. Agenda item. 2.14, review and discussion of the purchase of STEM Scope digital programs for the high school students. Agenda item. And 2.15, review and discussion of the purchase of the iStation digital programs. Agenda item. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 3, committee concerns. Any committee concerns? No? Okay, we adjourn this meeting at exactly 7:20 PM. Thank you.